Hi everyone, it's Olivia, your new favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot and click on and find. And I'm just going to do a little overview of my 2021 and 2022 reading list or reading log. And you can actually access and download this Google Sheets file in the link below. So basically, I started reading historical romance in 2021. I was just coming off of watching Bridgerton Season 1 on Netflix, and my library luckily had a page right up in front that said, "Hey, do you want Bridgerton read-alikes?" So I just started reading the books from there. So the way that my spreadsheet that I've shared with you is organized, I have the number on the left, the title, the author, the year it was published, the series the book is in, the number that book is in the series, if it's historical romance, and then I have an Amazon link, which is an affiliate link. So if you click on it, I get like a teensy tiny commission. The tropes, if it's like fake relationship, marriage of convenience, the female main character, the male main character, the other main character, if it has more than two characters. So I kind of started off with the Bedouins series by Mary Balog, and then this Courtney Milan book was highly recommended, so I read that. And Lisa Kleypas. I somehow started with Ravenel's series, but I only read two of them because the other ones were on waitlist, so I was waiting for them to come in. And then by like February, I was reading the whole Bridgerton series, starting with The Duke and I just binge read. The way I tend to read is whole series at once. I try to temper myself a bit now so that I don't overwhelm myself with the same author, but that's kind of how I read them. And then threw in one contemporary there. This one I saw a lot on Instagram and TikTok around the time that it was released. More Mary Balog, Kate Claiborne. And then I read the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas, and then somehow got back to the Ravenel series, which is appropriate because they make more sense after having read the Wallflowers. Some more contemporary romance by Lisa K. Adams is the Bromance Book Club, which is super fun. Other contemporaries, more Lisa Kleypas, more Mary Balog, Evie Dunmore, and then I started a run of Tessa Dare, a standalone Lisa Kleypas, more Lenora Bell. I finally got to the Hathaway series from Lisa Kleypas, some Elizabeth Hoyt, more Lisa Kleypas. This is the one that gets talked about a lot, Dreaming of You. Elizabeth Boyle. I basically just mood read when someone says, "You have to read this book," and so I did. I started reading Anne Gracie. One of them was like a ebook deal that I saw, so instead of buying the book, I borrowed it from the library and then read the whole rest of the series. Megan Frampton. I went back to Julia Quinn with the Smythe Smith Quartet, which takes place in the same universe as Bridgerton, so that's super fun. More Lenora Bell. Lady Whistledown anthologies. This one was a fresh release, Elizabeth Everett, in 2021 when I first read it. Tessa Dare. And then the Bridgerton Prequels, which is considered the Rokesbys. And then Sarah Mclean, another contemporary romance. I think I was reading a Christmas anthology in the summer. Charis Michaels. And at this point, I think I finished the entire, what's the series? Spindle Cove and Castles Ever After series. Finish up more Sarah Mclean, more little standalone novellas. Diana Quincy, Royland Singh, Darcy Burke. Around this time, this was a fresh release from Darcy Burke, so Sometimes I'd like to read new releases kind of in real time, and then other times I was reading just back catalogs of authors' backlists. Scarlett Peckham, this is the Charlotte Street series. Emily Sullivan was a new release in 2021. I saw someone recommend The Footman's Club by Valerie Bowman. And then at this time, The Wrong Marquess by Vivian Laurette was a fresh new release, but it was book 3 in the series. So I went back and read the first 2 books of the series. And then at this point, I finished reading the entirety of Sarah Mclean's backlist up until her latest book, which hadn't been published yet. I wasn't keeping track of the dates in 2021, but you'll see when I switch over to my 2022 spreadsheet that I did start keeping track of the dates. Some Katie Robert for contemporary, and then Olivia Parker. And somebody recommended Elisa Braden, so I just binge read all of those. There's 11 books in the series. I don't actually recommend binge reading whole series like this anymore because it can get repetitive to read the same author back to back to back without any breaks. So you'll start to see my reading patterns have changed over the past 2 years. More Katie Roberts, Charlotte Stein. This Lisa K. Adams book was a fresh new release when I read it. Just kind of a mix of different contemporaries. Nice little anthology here. This was around the time I think I realized contemporary romances were not my favorite, and I preferred reading historical romances. The Viscount Made Me Do It by Diana Quincy came out in 2021, so I think I read this as a new release. So Anne Gracie, one of my favorites still. I love reading Anne Gracie books. I've read her entire backlist except for her current series at this point. Read some Ava Lee. And then Bombshell by Sarah Mclean came out in August of 2021, and I'm pretty sure I read this the week it came out. Another mix of like contemporary, historical. I kept kind of going back and forth. Oh, and then I went back to read Tessa Dare's first series, which doesn't get much attention. The covers are kind of like old school, they're not so fun, but I thought it was pretty funny. More Julia Quinn. And The Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood came out in September, which I was so excited to be able to read a copy like the day it came out. I borrowed it from the library. Some Nicola Davidson, some more Shares Michaels. This series, The Brides of Belgravia, is all marriage of convenience, which is one of my favorite tropes. And then I started reading Stacey Reid, and I'm a huge fan of Stacey Reid. At this point, I have read her entire backlist. Few kind of one-off books people had recommended: Diana Quincy, Sabrina Darby. And then I started reading Annabelle Anders, and I'm still a huge Annabelle Anders fan to this day. This book right here, Lady Saves the Duke, it has some of like the funniest scenes in it, but it also has the most tragic scenes in it. I don't know how you can laugh and cry in the same book, but Annabelle Anders, she delivers. This was kind of a weird standalone by Eve Pendle. I was wondering why it's like not part of the series, and then she didn't have a very long backlist, but I'll talk more about Eve Pendle in a different video. Then I finally rounded back around to Mary Balog with the Simply Quartet. Around this time I realized I should have actually paid attention to how connected it was to the Bedouins series, because I think there was like a 9 to 8 month gap between when I read the Bedouins series and when I read the Simply series, and I wish I had read them closer together because the characters carry over. More Stacey Reid. I had borrowed these from my library, but they're also on Kindle Unlimited at the time of this recording. Started reading Joanna Shupe. This is Joanna Shupe's only Regency England series. After that, she jumps right into Gilded Age New York. Jenna Peterson, who is also known as Jess Michaels. This is one of her pen names. This series by Jenna Peterson, I swear, when I read it, I thought of the TV show Scandal. And I thought, this should be a TV show. Because the plot twist in there, you don't know who's related to who. It's super exciting. This book by Jenna Peterson is actually related, sort of, to the Billingham Bastard series, even though it says it's a standalone. Then I read the Huxtable series by Mary Balogh. This one, for some reason, it's not connected to the rest of the Mary Balogh universe. I don't know why it was kind of on its own or isolated and the characters don't interact, but it was still a really good series. More Darcy Burke. I was basically reading the Darcy Burke Phoenix Club books as they were coming out. Started reading Amelie Howard. Oh, sometimes I read books because podcasts I listen to are doing like in-depth reviews about those books. So the Tiffany Rice series was because I was listening to the Fated Mates podcast. And then I clearly remember this. This was like Thanksgiving Day. I figured, hey, let's start reading Vivian Laurette again. Let's start from the beginning of the backlist. So I had borrowed the first 3 books because they were all in one series and they weren't very long. And then I realized the next 3 books followed immediately after. Now these were pretty lighthearted books, so they're quick reads and all of the characters from these 6 books kind of interact with each other. Read a couple standalone Anne Gracie books. These were like Harlequins. And then jumped into Joanna Shoup with the Knickerbocker Club. The first book's just a little novella, so those were fun. Amelie Howard, more Mary Balogh. At this point, I think I've finished all of Vivian Laurette's books. And then more Annabelle Anders, Jenna Peterson. Oh no, here's when I finished all of Vivian Laurette's books. That was her second to latest series. And then I kind of ended the year with like an Annabelle Anders binge read. So her Devilish Debutante series, a few little standalones here. This Emily Sullivan book came out around the end of the year. And then her Perfect Regency series by Annabelle Anders. So that was 2021. I read 319 books. My first year starting to read historical romance. You can see how they're totally addicting once you get started. So then I jumped right into 2022. So I have a separate spreadsheet for that, and I'll show you that one now. So this spreadsheet is also available for you to view and download. The link is in the description box. So I started tracking like a little bit more information as I was reading these books. So I have the title, the author, the year, the series, the number in the series, if it's historical, the Amazon link, and then I started putting bookshop.org links. They're not on all the books because I only started like late in the year, but that's if you wanted to shop at an independent bookstore so that a percentage of the proceeds of your book purchases will go to a small independent bookstore rather than a large corporation. Libro FM is an audiobook company, so I put links there when I could in case you wanted to purchase the book as an audiobook. And then tropes, the female main character, the male main character, and the other character. Sometimes I marked if they were available on Kindle Unlimited, but I was kind of inconsistent. In my own personal spreadsheet, I did put the date of when I finished the book, but I didn't put that here in this shared version. So in 2022, I actually started reading more advanced reader copies so that I could put book reviews on my Instagram and TikTok and also upload them to NetGalley. So a lot of these books I might have been able to read ahead of time, so they weren't really in publication order. Now, at this point, this is a whole year past, so these books have been published, they're available, you can click on them, and you can read them. So remember when I said I read books based on the Fated Mates podcast? This was one of their first recommended reads of the year, so I read that, Passion by Lisa Valdez, and then the second book in the series. Read the latest book from Diana Quincy. So usually when the publication year is 2022, on the spreadsheet here, I did get an advanced copy to read. This was the first Jennifer McQuiston story. This one was fun. What happens in Scotland is a woke up married situation in a historical, which is not that common. 2022's Vivian Laurette release, some Anne Gracie. I think at this point, this was the last series that I needed to read of Anne Gracie's. 2022, I started reading a lot more new to me authors. There are still so many new to me authors, but I started with Kate Bateman here with the Bow Street Bachelor series, keeping up with Darcy Burke, some Anna Bennett. I started reading Christina Britton. There are other little kind of standalones here, Michelle Mclean, which I've talked about 10 Rules for Marrying a Duke before because it's a marriage of convenience one. 4 Weeks of Scandal, Megan Frampton. That was also an advanced copy that I read. Weather Girl from Rachel Lynn Solomon was a standalone contemporary that I borrowed from the library. I tried some different authors that I heard about in different Facebook groups. So Saoirse Mowbray. And then Samara Parrish I started reading. And then I started reading Samara Parrish, Scarlett Scott. Well, this whole series was on Kindle Unlimited. So around this time, like January, February, I started reading. I got a trial to Kindle Unlimited. And then I kept getting little like free trials or deals on Kindle Unlimited, so I had that for the rest of the year. But most books I borrowed from the library or I had an advanced reader copy. Eva Devon. There was a Stacey Reid series on Kindle Unlimited, so I read all of that. Ali Hazelwood, who I adore. Some more Darcy Burke. This one was an advanced copy. I tried out Deborah Mullins, but her books read of the time period. So early 2000s there. Still on the questionable side of consent, not quite as modern as present day historical romances. Started reading Charlie Lane. So this one's also on Kindle Unlimited. I did actually keep up with this series because I was reading advanced copies as each book came out. Same with Alexa Aston. So sometimes when I'm not binge reading a whole series, it's because I'm getting advanced copies and those books weren't released yet, especially these like 2022 releases. Bethany Bennett. I had an advanced copy of the third book in the series, so then I went back and read the earlier books in the series. So that's something I do a lot too. I'll request an advanced copy of a series I've been wanting to read, but hadn't gotten around to it. But somehow that like publication date kind of forces my hand and makes me want to read the earlier books in the series. Tracy Sumner is someone who publishes a lot on Kindle Unlimited. Her books are great. I love them. Yana McGregor, so The Widow Rules, is her latest series. And again, I read this book, Rules for Engaging the Earl, as an advanced copy. Somehow I picked up the Atlas 6 because it was like super hyped. I didn't read the original version of the Atlas 6. Olive E. Blake is, well, I came across Olive E. Blake originally as a Hermione fanfiction author, but obviously she's branched out now into kind of dark academia fantasy. She had independently published the Atlas Six a few years ago. I think it went viral on TikTok, and then she got picked up by a traditional publisher and published this first book, which I really enjoyed. The second book I didn't love quite as much, but I actually didn't finish that one. But that's okay. I still support authors, so I'm still super excited that Olivia Blake has found this success. I've always found her writing to be really creative and imaginative. So that's it about Olivia Blake. Some other little novellas, and I started reading Mary Farmer on Kindle Unlimited, more Allie Hazelwood, more Kate Bateman. This series is a lot of fun. The Ruthless Rivals series. I did read A Daring Pursuit as an advance copy. Some Kindle Unlimited, Eva Devon, some other kind of smaller authors that people might not have heard of. Ava Bond, Bella Moxie, Kathleen Ayers, Alexa Aston. I tried out this Sydney Jane Bailey. It was okay. I didn't continue reading that series. Kerrigan Byrne, wow, her stuff is really, really good. And I know I should not have started with the Good Girl series because this series follows the Victorian Rebel series, but I really enjoyed it. That was fun. Emily E.K. Murdoch is another one on Kindle Unlimited, kind of shorter books. Darcy Burke, Cerise Deland, Jess Michaels, Eva Devon on Kindle Unlimited, Nicola Davidson, all of these kind of smaller authors. Caught up with Annabelle Anders with the Cocky Gents series. At the time of this recording, this whole series is on Kindle Unlimited. Then I did a binge read of Charlie Lane, also one of my new favorites. Annabelle Anders. So the thing about this series, the Miss Prim's School series, is they're not available from my library. So I'm actually purchasing these one by one as they're released on Amazon. Alexa Aston. So this one was a really fun Alexis Hall book, A Lady for a Duke, with a trans character. Some Sabrina Jeffries. I read some more Stacey Reed, who I love. Charis Michaels, this was her latest series. I had an advance copy of A Duchess by Midnight. I do have a separate video for this Charis Michaels series. I also have a separate video for this Sinful Wallflower series by Stacey Reed. More kind of smaller authors. Annie Burroughs, she writes for Harlequin, Bella Moxie, Kathleen Ayers. And then I finally started reading Lorraine Heath, who is amazing and a classic. I have an in-depth review about this series, Once Upon a Dukedom. More Lorraine Heath. So I started reading from Lorraine Heath's backlist kind of when she started writing in England. And then I was like, no, I gotta backtrack. I gotta go back to her Texas stories. So I read April Moran, more Anne Gracie. No, I lied. Earlier I thought I had finished Anne Gracie. I finished Anne Gracie. I have a video about Chance Sisters as well. Sweet Lullaby by Lorraine Heath. One of the best. Even though it was published in 1994, it's well worth the read. Joanna Hishoop, 400 series. So many series. What did I tell you about binge reading all of these things? Scarlett Scott. More Annabelle Anders. These were like little bits and bobs that went with other stories. Beverly Jenkins. This was a novella that was fun to read. Sophie Barnes, I read for the first time. I did finally read Morning Glory Milking Farm last year, even though it made the internet rounds the year before. So now we're starting to scatter different authors, jumping around bit by bit. So Beverly Jenkins' Women Who Dare series, this was one where I realized I did not want to binge read all at once without a break because it's kind of heavy. And so I read the 3 in the series, still in a short time period, but just not all back to back. So you can see, like, the series are starting to jump. Anna Bennett, I read 2 of them back to back, and then I went back around to Beverly Jenkins, and then came back to Anna Bennett. Same with Kerrigan Byrne. I read 2 of her Victorian Rebel series, and then I jumped around a little bit to other series, and then came back around. I did read the Lunar Chronicles series by Maurice Meyer, which is like young adult fantasy and not romance. Anna Harrington I read for the first time. This Emily Sullivan I read as an advanced copy. I read Get a Life to Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert because the Fated Mates podcast told me I should, so I did. Picked up the rest of Anna Harrington's series, and then another Victorian Rebels. Just sort of jumping around. This Lenora Bell I read as an advanced copy. I finished all of Lenora Bell's books the year before. More Kerrigan Byrne. The latest from Ali Hazelwood that was published in, I think it was August of 2022. So these 2 books came out in the same day. Heartbreaker by Sarah Mclean and Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, and both of my library holds came in that exact day. So that was a lot of fun. Some Lorraine Heath. I read Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne because when Ali Hazelwood was doing the podcast circuit, all she would talk about was Angelica Frankenstein. So, of course. More Stacey Reid, more Mary Farmer, more Kerrigan Byrne. I think at this point I finished the Victorian Rebels series. More Joanna Shoup. So here, kind of jumped to the Uptown Girls, more Eva Lee. Had some Mary Balogh here with her really old stories. And then moving on to more Mary Balogh. Mary Balogh is just a classic, and I do love her books. I just can't, binge them so much. And then very rarely I read a contemporary. This is A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. I think the series it's a part of a series. I just don't know the name of the series, so I didn't write it down. Adriana Herrera. And, Alexandra Vassie, amazing. You need to subscribe to her email list and get this book. Margot Halifax, totally worth it. She's going to be traditionally published in 2024, and it seems like a really long time from now, but she has 2 novellas available on her email list that you just need to go read them. Let's see. Oh, also, Felicity Niven. You have to read Felicity Niven. Totally worth it. When Ardor Blooms is available on her email list. The rest of the books are on Kindle Unlimited. Still reading Darcy Burke. At this point, I started reading Virginia Heath because I had an advanced copy of book 2 here. Christina Britton's latest book, I had an advanced copy. Kristen Vaden. Kristen Vaden is Closed Door, but I didn't even realize it until I finished the book, and I was like, hey, that was Closed Door. But I had a lot of fun when I was reading it. Little nonfiction, Big Bang Theory. I think by about this time here, when I was reading The Survivors Club, I had started my Substack page where I was putting book reviews more consistently. So I remember a lot more about these books because I was actually writing down what I thought about them. As a Hermione/Harry Potter reader, I did listen to Tom Felton's memoir. This one's actually fun to listen to because Tom Felton is the one who is narrating. More Mary Balogh. You can see I didn't binge read them side by side. Eloisa James, because I had an advanced copy of this book. Samara Parrish. I also had an advanced copy. Someone on Instagram recommended this Anne Barton series, so I read that. Anne Barton is actually a pen name for Anna Bennett. So if you like Anna Bennett's books, you will also like Anne Barton's books. Sabrina Darby, this one's a cute little Taming of the Shrew retelling. Some Amy Rose Bennett, some more Annabella Anders, and just kind of like a mix of different stuff. Cecilia Grant, which I have a video about Cecilia Grant. So around this time, I also started my YouTube channel, so I was making more like book reviews of those. Felicity Niven has a nice little extended epilogue for one of her books, also on her newsletter. And then I caught up with more Kerrigan Byrne. Callie Hunton series is on Kindle Unlimited, so I picked that up to read. More Darcy Burke. Sophie Irwin was a standalone book, so I don't talk about it much. Usually I do my book reviews in series, but the Sophie Irwin book is really quite entertaining. It's more emotional than I thought it would be. The cover doesn't look like anything, but still definitely worth reading. And then I ended the year with a bunch of novellas because I wanted to read more than 365 books for the year, so I finished out at 370, mostly because I forced myself to read these few little novellas. But that's kind of how I ended my 2022. I'm still keeping up this same tracking sheet for 2023. So once the year is complete and I have that all done, I'll make it shareable so that you have all the links. Or you can just read my blog if you want an ongoing, consistent update of all the books I'm reading. But yeah, hopefully you thought this was kind of fun. It's like a bookshelf tour, but all I read are ebooks that I borrow from the library, so it's not quite really a bookshelf tour. You can get the links to these spreadsheets in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. You can like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos and book reviews, and I do love talking about all of these books. And if there's any one of these books that you want to see reviewed in more depth, just let me know in the comments, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive. Thanks!